What is up, weather enthusiasts? I'm your host, Pat's Path Predictor. Let's get right into the weather. Alright, so here's the situation we have for you, ladies and gentlemen. We have Tropical Storm Jerry that is quickly organized and expected to become a hurricane. We have tropical storm watches issued for much of the Lesser Antilles. And we also have a very big looming threat in the Central American Gyre from both the Climate Prediction Center and several models down the line. So we're going to go ahead and talk about that for quite a while today. So let's go ahead and dive right into it right here. Starting off for you guys right here, this is the National Hurricane Center. We have Tropical Storm Jerry over here making its approach towards the Lesser Antilles. Let's go ahead and pull up the information on that over here. So here's what we got for you right here. We are looking at Hurricane Hunter aircraft. They are expected to be they are investigating Tropical Storm Jerry right now, as a matter of fact. But here's the situation. Maximum sustained winds are currently 60 miles per hour. Minimum central pressure is 1,000 millibars. You're looking at west-northwest movement at 23 miles per hour. So this system is hauling as it's approaching the Antilles right here. Tropical storm watches are in effect for Antigua, Barbuda, Anguilla, St. Kitts, Nevis, and Montserrat, St. Barthélemy, and St. Martin, the Dutch version of St. Martin, as well. You're looking at Saba and St. Eustatis. I'm sorry, I'm not pronouncing this. And then Guadalupe and the adjacent islands. So that's what we're looking at this current point in time. So you're definitely going to want to watch this system. Tropical storm force winds have extended outward 125 miles from the center, and we're looking at Jerry becoming a hurricane by the weekend. Jerry's center passed just south of one of our buoys, which currently has a sustained wind of 47 miles per hour over there at this current point in time. So that's your situation you're dealing with Jerry. Let's go ahead and read some of the discussion. So here's what we got for you right here. Jerry is a shear tropical cyclone this morning with the low-level center racing out ahead of the deep layer convection. Despite the structure, a NOAA Hurricane Hunter aircraft measured a peak 700 millibar wind of 56 knots, and a Taylor Doppler data showed winds of around 75 knots at 500 meters above the surface. So that's near hurricane speed right there for you, ladies and gentlemen. Even using a conservative renderation factor of 70% yield shows surface winds at about 50 knots. Recent ASCAT data also confirms that the initial intensity is at around 50 knots. So that is 60 miles per hour for you guys right there. Jerry's moving directly against the analyzed shear vector, and vertical motion soundings suggest that this orientation may not change anytime soon. It's becoming more likely that Jerry may remain a shear tropical storm for the next few days, and the intensity guidance has responded accordingly. You are still looking at hurricane strength as a possibility, although you're not seeing as much strengthening at this current point, so we're going to want to pay attention to that going forward, and we'll continue to keep you updated, especially for our friends in the Antilles here on the Pat's Path Predictor channel. But first, I do want to take a look at Hurricane Reconnaissance, see what's going on, and see what they're finding out of it right here. Yeah, they're looking at the winds right here. Flight level winds over 60 knots right here that they found. So that definitely supports your 60 mile per hour winds. SFMR is closing in at 50 knots as well. So definitely supporting those 60 mile per hour winds as well. Jerry remains very sheared right there with the majority of the convection blowing up on the eastern side of it right here. They have found the center of circulation extrapolated pressure, according to them, is 1,003 millibars, but the buoy has measured 1,000 just to the south of it, so we're definitely going to want to watch that as well. Looking at their dropsund in the eye as well, they found 1,002 millibars right here at 1,003 at 13 knots, so you do the standard reduction of 10 knots per 1 millibar, so you're at 1,001.7 based on that reading. So that's something to keep in mind as well. We had another mission in there a little bit earlier, so we're going to want to watch out for that as well. But Jerry is remaining quite sheared at this current point in time, and we can go ahead and take a quick look at satellite imagery just to kind of get a close-up as to what's going on with that. So here's what we have with Jerry. You're looking at this. You're still seeing deep convection. Don't get me wrong. The problem is a lot of this deep convection is outside of the center of circulation, and it also doesn't help that the system is moving so fast that it's kind of gonna need to really reduce. We're definitely gonna need to see a lot more reduced shear for more of that convection to blow up near the center of circulation. Looking at true color imagery right here, you can kind of see how that's exacerbated right here. This system is moving at a very fast speed. 23 knots for a tropical cyclone is quite fast. In fact, that's about the speed Hurricane Beryl moved through as it head through the Caribbean and as it head towards Jamaica. The thing is with Beryl is we barely had any wind shear, and the wind shear that did affect it, Beryl fought it off like a monster, the monster it was. And that's kind of your situation you're dealing with Jerry. So you're definitely seeing that shear really chipping away at its structure, and it doesn't look like it's going to be stopping or slowing down anytime soon. We'll look at the European for that shear forecast a little bit down the line, but by and large, at the fact that it's a 60-mile-per-hour system and it's this sheared is kind of showing just how much Jerry is fighting in the first place. We're going to have to see if that shear starts to reduce or not as it approaches the Antilles, but at this current point in time, their main focus should be on more of its consolidation and if it can start producing more convection near the center of circulation. It has a really tight situation right here. It has a really tight gradient right here as well. It has a really tight circulation too, but you're looking at this right now and you're going, okay, things are really ramping up right here. And you can even see the shear right here. Looking at the shear right here, even as it's producing convection off the outflow from that forcing, you're going, yeah, there's definitely, you can see how evident it is. It's really sheared on a lot of these angles right there that you're going to want to pay attention to down the line. One last thing I forgot to show you guys right here is our cone. So as you can see, we have tropical storm watches from Guadalupe all the way through up to the Leeward, rest of the Leeward Islands right here. It is expected to continue to strengthen, become a hurricane by the time it moves north of the Antilles, and then as it moves out, it will remain at hurricane strength according to the latest discussion right here. So we're definitely going to want to pay attention to that as well. That speed is not going to be going down anytime soon right now, likely until it starts to make that turn. Once it starts slowing down, maybe it'll have a better chance of consolidation. But right now, it's just not off to that. Off to a good start in terms of that. And if it wants to really start organizing, it really wants to intensify, especially in an environment like this, it needs to slow down in speed before it can do that. So that way it has a better chance of convection firing off near the center of circulation and starting to consolidate also on the western side as well. Those are two factors that we're going to want to watch out for, and we'll keep you updated on here on the Pat's Pathbreaker channel. But this is also a big story that we need to talk to you about today. This is the latest from the Climate Prediction Center, and based on what they're forecasting for, we're looking at a pretty active October for the Central American Gyre. This is our looming threat that we've been watching for the last few weeks right here. We were wondering how long it would take for things to start going off, and well, things are expected to start going off this week, and then going into next week, and then going to the 22nd through the 28th. So here's the situation we have for week 2. Looking at this right here, you're looking at 20% risk throughout the southern Gulf, as well as all the way to the Dominican Republic as well, and then expanding out into the eastern Pacific in that region as well. But the 40% risk is what really piques my interest right here, because what that's telling me is that's your classic Central American Gyre setup right here. Looking at this right here, pretty much the Bay of Campeche, either in the Eastern Pacific or off the Nicaragua and Honduras over here. Those are your three areas that typically get tropical development from the Central American Gyre. Just to break it down, the two most common areas for the gyre to start producing convection and then then producing tropical cyclones is in this part in the Eastern Pacific, as well as this part in the Atlantic. The Bay of Campeche is a lot more of a rare situation where the gyre system starts to form. It can happen, don't get me wrong, but it's a lot more rare, and a case that we saw that with was actually Hurricane Milton back in 2024, so that's definitely something that you're going to want to pay attention to as well. We also have that 20% risk over here in the main development region, so we may have one last shot of tropical development and tropical activity coming off the MDR before things start to shut down in that region for the year. So that's what we're looking at in early October right here. Then going into the 22nd to the 28th, so this is late October now, it's more so focused on the Atlantic. You're looking at more of that 20% kind of stretching all the way to from the western, from the Dominican Republic all the way to Central America, and even in parts of the Gulf region as well. And then going into parts of the Eastern Pacific, that becomes a lot less friendly, and this becomes a lot more friendly comparatively speaking. So that's something that you're going to want to pay attention to. If you're in Cuba, if you're in the Gulf Coast, if you're in the Bahamas, you are absolutely going to want to pay attention to this down the line, because Central American gyre systems are notoriously difficult to forecast. They are notoriously easy to intensify at a very fast rate because of the consolidation factors associated with them, and the fact that we've seen Central American gyres in the past cause a lot of destruction for wherever they hit. Infamous examples of this even from last year were Hurricanes Helene and Milton. Another infamous example we can give was Hurricane Idalia in 2023. That still caused a lot of damage, but probably the most infamous is Hurricane Michael back in 2018. Formed off the gyre on this day, actually 7 years ago, rapidly intensified all the way to the Gulf region, made landfall as a Category 5 hurricane. Am I saying that this is going to happen again? No, I am not saying that at all. But what I am saying right now is you're going to want to pay attention to this, because the history we have with the Central American gyre is very turbulent and can cause a lot of problems down the line. Now we're going to go ahead and switch gears a little bit. We're going to go ahead and go to the North Atlantic. We're going to go ahead and update this for you guys right here just to give a general idea as to what's going on. We'll pop up the European ensembles first just to give you a general idea of what we may be looking at. I'm going to go ahead and go to 168 hours out, and then we're going to go ahead and zoom in a little bit over here in this part of the Atlantic, so that way we can give you some context and give you a better viewing experience with this. So here's what we got for you guys right here. This is for that region over there. You're taking a quick gander at this right here. You are looking at some ensembles starting to fire off over here in multiple angles. Majority of them calling for some weak development in the Eastern Atlantic not Eastern Atlantic, Eastern Pacific over there. But you're still having some powerful ensembles developing off the coast of Honduras and off the coast of Nicaragua as well, potentially heading towards Cuba. A little bit more scattered out compared to what we've seen in the past, but taking a quick look at this, you're definitely seeing those ensembles starting to pop up here and there. This is something that we're going to want to wait for, and we're going to want to watch. Right now, in terms of our short-term forecasts, I don't see very much happening outside of Tropical Storm Jerry right now, but more long-term, especially after like October 13th, after October 14th, after October 15th is when you're going to want to watch the gyre. Right now, we have a lot of noise over here, but we don't have a lot of pinpoint data and pinpoint accuracy to pin it down. So we're going to want to pay attention to it. We're going to want to monitor the situation over here, but that's your European ensembles right here. Taking a quick look at the GFS ensembles right here. GFS, you can get a little bit better of a picture out with this right here, but still not the most optimal in my opinion. This is for October 18th, still scattered all over the place right there, but you're going to want to watch over the next few days, especially if the Climate Prediction Center is tagging this, then you're going to want to pay very, very close attention to it, because the CPC, if you see that start to get designated, then you're going to start seeing other areas of interest get designated by the NHC down the line, especially if it's greater than a 40% area of development as in this part of the Atlantic. You're going to want to pay attention to that just because of the proximity it has to land over there, so you're going to want to keep an eye on it. I know the NHC does have an area of interest designated right now in the Bay of Campeche right here, but I'm not too worried about it right now. It's mainly disorganized showers and thunderstorms. I'm not seeing that developing. That's why I didn't talk more about this, but I would be worried, especially down the line where things start to fire off. So that's what we're looking at right here. Let's go ahead now and pull up some model runs to go, okay, how is this going to this whole thing going to pan out, and how should we be paying attention to this? So let's start with the European, taking a quick look at kind of the short-term forecast with Jerry. European doesn't have that much strengthening going on until it moves out to sea right here, where it becomes a hurricane and then starts to move away from land, and then starts to get turned towards the east, interestingly, actually, gets pulled south of the Azores Islands, but does weaken due to it becomes a remnant low as it crashes into the Canary Islands over here off of Morocco and the Western Sahara over here. So that's something you're going to want to watch out for right there. That's your European for Jerry right there. In terms of what we're seeing with the Gyre, Europeans still trying to make heads or tails of it right now. They are favoring some Eastern Pacific development, which I will say, if that's the case, one of two things is going to happen. Either one, it's going to shear the Atlantic side of things and not really cause much development over there, or two, we could see a scenario where this is a lot more of a rare scenario, but the Gyre develops two systems at once. This happened with Helene last year, where it developed two systems and kind of allowed for the system to consolidate. What I will say, and we can go and looking at these areas right here, it looks to me that this area of development is actually pretty small and very mesoscale compared to what I've seen previously, and it looks like it's going to be being allowed for it to be far enough away for whatever outflow and for whatever shear that does produce to stay out of the Atlantic, just because of how tiny and how consolidated that is. So that is something you're going to want to note, because if you're seeing a bigger storm compared to what we've seen previously with this low pressure system right here, you're going to have to raise a few more questions about, is this going to happen or not? This type of setup is going to be interesting because of how consolidated that is, and we'll have to pay attention to it here on the Pat's Path Predictor channel. Here is your GFS run for you guys right here. GFS actually has a hurricane moving just northeast of the Lesser Antilles right here, then becoming a 978 millibar system right here, and then starting to weaken as it moves out to sea and kind of gets yanked by this coastal low as it moves through parts of North Carolina and Virginia right there. You're going to want to pay attention to that. Then it moves out to the east, likely as a remnant low or an extratropical cyclone, so we'll have to keep an eye on it. In terms of our Gyre setup right here, GFS is something similar going on right here, mainly happening like at least something trying to blow up in the Eastern Atlantic, but not Eastern Atlantic, Eastern Pacific. I apologize yet again. But what's interesting is how close to land the GFS is and how disorganized that is. And what I will say is, if the GFS case holds, that would actually be an even better scenario for tropical development in the Central American Gyre region of the Atlantic, because at that current point, what are you looking at? What you're looking at right here. So what we're looking at with this is, instead of maybe some outflow, you're just seeing a disorganized mess, and that's really not going to cause that much issues at all. So that's your GFS run right here, not to mention the conditions that we're dealing with as well. So what we're looking at right there, that's the GFS Canadian run. Similar thing with Jerry moving out to sea as a hurricane. The CMC also does have this starting to pop up over here from the main development region, starting about 5 days out, I think. And then the Gyre starts to wake up with the Canadian, potentially having a low pressure system hit Cuba potentially before moving out to the Atlantic. So that's something you're going to want to watch out for as well. The CMC picking up our little scenario over here in this part of the main development region, similar to the CPC. So that's an interesting thing to watch. Lastly, the Icon run, not the most trustworthy model out of the bunch, but the Icon is a tropical storm hitting the Antilles right there. So you're going to want to pay attention to that. Having another system starting to pop out in the main development region, and then having another system develop in the Eastern Pacific. But again, too mesoscale for it to really affect Atlantic settings. So that's what you're dealing with right here. So that's your main setup that you're dealing with right here. The models are definitely going to need to take their time to get their act together. The ensembles are kind of all over the place right now, so it's kind of hit or miss as to what we're seeing. But by and large, the climate is definitely looking favorable for tropical development in October in parts of the Central American Gyre. So we're going to want to pay attention to that and keep you updated here on the Pat's Path Predictor channel. And before I go, I know I've been off and on the last few week or so. I've not been uploading as much. I'm doing my best to get back. I've been focusing on my personal life and all that stuff, so I'm glad to be back. In terms of what we're going to be doing with streams and all of that, we're not 100% sure yet. We'll have to wait and see how that pans out. I do have a couple of projects I'm going to be working on. One of them is going to be a winter weather forecast. Plan is to hopefully get that out this week, and then a documentary on Hurricane Milton will be worked on as well. So that's something that I hope you guys will be excited for. I really am proud of how I did the Hurricane Helene documentary. If you haven't already, feel free to go check it out. I'd really appreciate it. But with that being said, we're closing it out right here. I really hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you you are new. The goal, as always, is to get more people engaged with weather. If you'd like to help out, hang out, or ask us questions, feel free to join the Storms United Discord server. The link to that will be in the end screen. And with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, have a wonderful day, guys. Stay safe.